Hello and welcome back to Tony Northeastern, and today we're going to be looking at the research I have been doing into the railway station South Shields. I have been using these books to do my research and also the internet, but before we start, make sure you have your coffee and biscuits ready. Okay, before we get started, we've got to keep one of my students very happy. And here he is. Here, Ben. There's your biscuit. Off you go. Go on. Here is an interesting track plan, probably original from 1879 when the station was built. And just looking at how big the station is for a terminus station. If I had an extra meter, I would probably got all this extra track working. Anyway, let's look at some of the interesting features of this track plan. As you can see, there's extra sidings here which go beyond the platform, and there's an extra siding here which goes to the coal yard and depot. And here we have a little weighbridge, which you'll see a photograph of later on in the video. What's interesting about this track plan is the bridge that crosses the tracks here is not here. It probably came about later on. Okay, let's look at some photographs. Here is an interesting view of the station by air. It was taken roughly around about the 1930s, and you can actually see the clock tower here of the station, which we'll come into in the next photograph. And this facade is still here, this fascia, and if we move the cursor up, we can see the signal box and the water tower just there. If we carried on along the track, you probably would have come across the turntable. Here is a postcard of the inside of the station, and I'm just admiring the steelwork on the oval roof and an unusual footbridge, which we'll go into detail later on. As you can see, there's no electrification on the tracks just yet. Here we have another view of the inside of the railway station, looking north this time, and what appears to be an N7062 tank engine pulling a suburban train. And if you look at the rails, they now have the third rail in for the EMUs. Here we have another overhead view looking at the station, but this time we can see more or less the front of the station, the clock tower, which is visible still, and the first entrance to the station there is still there with the fascias, some sidings there, and it looks to be a siding running into the back of the station here. In this 1930s photograph of the station, you can actually see the clock tower, the lovely ornate window at the front, And what's particularly interesting is not necessarily the station, but this little tobacconist. That would make a lovely little project to model. And other features are these sandstone pillars with a lamppost on the top.
A day in the life of the mayor seems to be neither here nor there, at least not for long. After 2 years' work and an expenditure of $500,000, a new electric train service is being opened between Newcastle and South Shields, and the mayor travels on the first train. No sooner has he arrived when he starts to come back again. The new service reduces the old train journey time between the two towns by 7 minutes, and it's expected to help materially in the progress of Tyneside.
And here is a photograph of that historical event in 1938. And look at the infrastructure around the front of the station and the bunting on the walls, so it must have been some celebration for the first train. In this photograph we're looking north, and as you can see the clock tower is still there. And what's interesting in this photograph is how far out did the two station buildings come from the edge of the platform, which is just inside that brick wall. So all these photographs I've been gathering is to try and get as much detail as possible for when I come to build the station. In this photograph you can see the signal box, which is just beyond the station, and the water tower behind it. And it just looks like there's a train there being shunted into the platforms. Note the houses in the background. Another view of the same area, looking south this time, and you actually see the tracks going behind the water tower, and there's a track just here which is going off to the goods yard to the right. Here we have the first shot of that riverside bridge, and beyond the bridge is the River Tyne, and this bridge has been mistaken quite a few times for the Tyne Bridge. Love this old photograph showing the same bridge but looking across the tracks. As you can see, there's a lovely old terraced houses there. You can just see a signal gantry and the bridge beyond. And here's another view of the same bridge. It's not a very good quality photograph, but look how ornate those lampposts are. On the 9th of April 1941, 2 bombs were dropped on Clevedon Rise. Then came a shower of incendiaries. An estimated of 6,000 fell in the Tie Dock area, in the South Shields town area, over Mile End Road, River Drive and Wapping Street district. It soon became clear that a full-scale attack was developing, and directed mainly at the shipbuilding and ship repair yards and timber yards on the river. Throughout 1940 and 41, South Shields was hit quite a few times. Some were through mistake of an identity, because of the River Drive Bridge. And here we see a photograph of South Shields train station with the clock tower totally obliterated, and the station never looked the same since. Now this is an interesting photograph. It shows the turntable now redundant, and it also shows the River Tyne in the background. And here's another interesting photograph of the very same bridge, and I can't quite make out the rolling stock in the background. Here's an internal view of the station, showing the arch shaped windows, which are very, very unique. This is around 1950s. That's looking across the footbridge to the other side. This is looking north, and as you can see, the signal box is still there, along with the gantry and the 3 sets of tracks. Here we have some new EMUs that took over from the old ones that you saw earlier. These were built in Eastleigh between 1954 and 1955. These units were operated on the South Tyne services between Newcastle Central and South Shields, a route that had been a very busy commuter route. These were finally replaced in 1963 by DMUs. But when these were discontinued, they went back to the Eastleigh works and reconfigured, and then they worked on routes down in East Grinstead and down that way. And here are a couple of photographs of these new EMUs. In this photograph you see some of the oval roof is missing. Here are some more internal shots of the station. Note the paint is starting to flake off the walls. Although the station had an oval roof, it was open to the elements. Here we have a nice snowy scene at South Shields. Here we have one of the first photographs I found after the bombing of South Shields Station. And as you can see, the clock tower's gone completely. But they have managed to save the ornate window above the doors there. By looking at the cars there, it's looking around about 1960s/70s. Horrible multi-storey car park there. Here we have one of the first photographs of showing the station starting to become run down. If you note, the signal box is gone, but the water tower is still there. Here we have a DMU, it's just about to leave South Shields. It's got to be around about mid-60s, going on to late 70s. Here's one of my favourite shots of the DMU with the speed whiskers actually entering the station. Here we're starting to look into the 1970s, late 70s I would say. Here we have a wet, miserable day, and looks to me like the oval roof is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Here we have the water tower yet again, and by the looks of it, the vandals have been at it and smashed all the windows, and it's looking in a very sorry state. And here we have a Class 47, which is very unusual for South Shields. I don't think many of these came here, but the choice of rolling stock to run on this model railway when it's built is endless, endless possibilities. And here is the weighbridge I was telling you about in the goods yard at the very start of the video. This is the only photograph I have found of this. Well, that's worth modelling, I think. Here we have a view of the station, mid-80s. And if you look behind the tree there, you can just make out the yellow South Shields sign, which indicated this was the entrance to the metro station. But the metro station was 300 yards further down the track, in King Street, just over the bridge there. Here we have a sad photograph of it being prepared for being demolished. And here's another one. You can just make out the entrance to the left as the rest of it slowly comes down. Before we go, I just want to compare this photograph with this photograph. Now then, this one was taken around about 1960s, and as you can see, the platform just finishes this side of the bridge. So when they closed South Shields, they moved the station just a couple of 100 yards towards that building in the background, and here you see it in the 1980s. So I just thought I'd compare that with you. Now they have closed that station now and moved it even further back down the track, and they call it the Metro Interchange now. so they tie in with the bus station, which is further along the line. So I do apologise if this video has been a bit on the long side, but so has the research. So I've got lots of options and design to think of on how I want to create the station, but that will be another video. So thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed what you've seen, and I think it's time for me to make another coffee. Okay, see you next time. Bye.